Hey everybody, welcome to How the Sausage is Made with Chris Cosentino, where I talk with chefs, restaurateurs, athletes, philanthropists, and pretty much anybody that inspires me. We look below the surface, behind the curtain, and dig deep into how these people got to where they are today. Wins, losses, and everything in between. All right, everybody. I'm excited to welcome Chef Beau from Il Boca al Lupo in Juneau, Alaska. So, folks, for those of you who think getting product is difficult, that's a whole new world. Not only is Beau a chef, but he also works on his friend's commercial fishing boat, which gives a direct connection to what he's able to get in his restaurant on the regular. That's crazy, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of commitment.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot. So, Beau, thank you for taking time. I know
Yeah.
we're all running around like lunatics to keep businesses going and restaurants running.
Yeah.
But I want to start off at the beginning. How did you decide you wanted to be a chef? What was that thought process for you? Is it something you always wanted to be, or is it something you kind of fell into?
I kind of fell into it. There was no real like food culture. Both my one grandma didn't cook and the other grandma was like, I don't even know what was going on anytime we went over to her house. And then neither of my parents cooked. So the joke used to always be that I started cooking out of necessity. But when I turned 14, my dad was like, you're going to go get a job. That's what we did for my 14th birthday is he drove me around dropping off job applications. And basically as a 14-year-old, you could there was working the counter at this burger place or there was bagging groceries at Safeway, but Safeway drug tested. So I told my dad Safeway wasn't hiring and I went to the burger place. And that was like,
Wow.
yeah, that was it. So I started working at this burger place and then it wasn't really anything that I enjoyed doing. It just was something that I did. And anytime I would try and get a job outside of the industry, like all my friends were working at this bicycle rental shop for tourists, and they're making $12 an hour, which is like a lot of money to a 14, 15-year-old
Oh, of
back
course.
in the 90s, So I go apply, but then they, what do you know about bicycles? I don't know anything about bicycles. I know how to cook burgers. So I couldn't get jobs. So it was like, I just kept getting more and more restaurant jobs. So I had the burger job for a little bit. Then I got a job at a pizza place when I was 15. And I really enjoyed doing that. But the place was just a total shit show. There was this older guy that was teaching me how to make pizza. But while he was also teaching me pizza, he would let me know that he could karate chop me in the neck and take me down. The in between his lessons on how to be fast and how to top pizzas, he'd also be like, I'll get you in the neck right now and drop you. And I'm like, okay, man. I'm 15. And then, yeah, it was just kind of a series of burger and pizza place jobs, your typical high school kid, teenager jobs. And then when I was 17, I got a job at a real restaurant. It was Alaska's busiest restaurant, the Glacier Brew House. And my first day there, I'm going down into the locker room area, and this server chased the GM. He ran into the men's locker room, and she stood outside of it and was like, I know you hear me, bitch. And that was I didn't know people talk to each other like that in the workplace. And then all the servers were sleeping with each other. Everyone was doing drugs. A server caught me drinking somebody's unfinished cocktail and was like, don't do that. That's gross. I'll just go get you something. I was 17. So they're going and getting me these drinks from the bar and stuff. And so that was when I was this is what I want to do. This is what I want out of life. But it wasn't because of the cooking. It was cooking at that point was something that I was kind of good at it and that was cool. But it was mostly just I really liked all of the bad things that were going on at the time. This was 2000, 2001. So things were a little different then.
Full on pirate ship.
Yeah, just nuts, and the fact that I was 17 working with a bunch of guys that were the rest of them were all in their 20s and stuff and treating me like I was also an adult. They weren't going to treat me like a kid. So
Yeah.
that was the other thing was I just really enjoyed being treated like I was also grown, even though some of it, I'm what were they doing giving alcohol to a 17-year-old? But, just different time.
Yeah.
And then I got in a whole bunch of trouble with drugs, ended up going to jail for a bit. And then when I got out, I had to go do my probation in a town called Homer. So I was down in Homer staying with my aunt, and they were opening up this restaurant called Fat Olives. And so I started working at their restaurant for this chef named Evan Vogel. And he was the first one that started really kind of introducing me to like caring about the craft and actually cooking like good food, sourcing quality ingredients, all this kind of stuff, while also like maintaining that kind of like, pirate ship cooks are badass outcast kind of mythos that really, my young brain really dug into. At Fat Olives was where I really started to realize that like I enjoyed cooking also as a craft. And so I spent 3 years working there, kinda just developing like, I wouldn't say he wasn't teaching me, like, anything crazy, like, I wasn't learning any it's not like doing a stage at Noma or anything, but he taught me how to operate on the line. It was like kinda like a little mini boot camp, like, how to be fast. If you're gonna go refill your olive oil bottle, like, grab the other olive oil bottles from other people's stations and fill them up, and
Foundations. He was teaching you the
right.
true foundations of being a good chef.
Yeah, I mean, his prep list that was up on the wall would have times next to it, so you knew you had, like, 30 minutes to clean a case of broccoli and get it going and, like, all this kinda stuff. So it was, like, really teaching me how to think on my feet and, yeah, just hustle, most primarily it.
Responsibility. He was giving you the tools to be responsible for what you needed to do every day.
Exactly. I mean, it was also, like, the first place so I'd been, like, line cooking for a while by that point, and then I started there, and he was just like, "You're not ready for the line," and he bumped me down to a prep cook, And that was, like young me kinda took that as a slap in the face at first until I realized that I was, like how much I was learning being bumped down to a prep cook again. So, like, yeah, learning all of those, like, fundamentals and basics. And then I worked there for about 3 years and then got in some trouble with the law again and ended up getting, fired from there. Not oddly enough, not for getting in trouble with the law, but because I lied to him about committing the crimes. Like, the police were around and he was like, Were you involved in this?" And I said, "No." And then later got arrested for it. And I showed up to work and he was like, "You lied to me." And so then I got fired from there. And that was like a big deal for me at the time. Like I was like, I didn't even know what I was going to do with my life after that. I was like, oh, that was my whole world. So I was working at some little rinky dink place for a little while and just kind of being a total fuck up, doing drugs and just being a waste. And I decided that I needed to do something. So I started looking into going to culinary school, but I didn't want to go to culinary school like I already knew how to make stock and dice vegetables and all this kind of stuff. I'd been cooking for 5 years at that point. So I found a culinary school in Italy that took like English speakers. They'd either have translators on hand or like the guy that ran the school was from New York, so he spoke English. So I signed up for this like 3-month course at the Italian Culinary Institute over in Calabria and
Wow.
went over there. And that was like a total eye-opening experience. Really kind of this thing where it's like, I don't think I really learned any like recipes there or anything like that, but it completely changed how I approached cooking, like to strip it down, 3 things on a plate, 2 ingredients in a sauce kind of stuff. Yeah, just completely changed my whole worldview. You know
Less is
Andy and
more.
Michael?
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah, Andy and
Andy and
Michael.
Michael? Yeah, they were
Yeah,
we were at school together.
yeah. Those
And
guys
then
are
the
great.
Caputos from, Caputo Brothers Creamery, they were also in my class, so it was a fun group that we had there. But yeah, did that, and then it was bumming around Europe for a little bit and got an email about Evan had left that restaurant, Fat Olives I was at, and they would pay for my plane ticket to come back if I would, like, come back to work, so ended up going back to Homer and, working there for, like, another but kinda just got caught up in doing drugs and drinking again, and one day got handed a plane ticket and said I was leaving in 2 weeks, and they sent me down to Juneau, where I am now, and, was working at, like, a weird it was, like, supposed to be a fancy hotel, but it's like Alaska's version of a fancy hotel, the Baranoff. I was there for probably a year and a half, and, like, the descent from when I first started, I showed up and they were, like, breaking down whole lambs from Oregon and working with nice quality products and stuff like that, and then it was just, like, the executive chef gave up while I was there, and it slowly just got worse and worse and worse and worse until one day he showed up with this, like frozen potatoes and peppers and onions that you would get from like a TGI Fridays. And he said, "Oh, I want you to play around with this product. I think it might be really nice." And I was like, "I don't think I can work here anymore." So I ended up leaving there and going and bartending for a while, which was not a great move for me. Just kind of really ramped up my alcoholism. But I did that for about a year and a half. And then got this wild idea that I should move down to Portland and start cooking again. So went down to Portland, ended up working at both the Deschutes Brew House right after they opened and then the Widmer Brew Pub. Both of those were really crazy experiences. Like Deschutes was doing like 1,200 covers a night.
Yeah.
So it's like I'd never, I mean, I was living in Homer for a while. There was like 4,000 people living in that town. So it'd be like a quarter of the town coming to your restaurant at night. It
Every
was
day.
nuts. Yeah, insane. I'd never experienced anything like that. Just being part of a machine like that.
Yeah.
Crazy. Just how they had it set up. Like just working a line where you're just cooking stuff off tickets, but not like the expediter's not calling it out. You just cook food as fast as you can and put it up
Yeah.
in the window and they'll just come and grab it. I mean, it just was so weird. And then Widmer was kind of the same. Like, they do like 600 covers and they call it a slow night. Be like 4 people on the hotline kicking out 800 meals.
That's a lot of food.
Just nuts. Absolutely insane. And then this was during the '08 kinda financial crisis or whatever, but me being this, like, dirtbag alcoholic drug abuser, I didn't even know that was going on. That was like nothing changed for me, except for the fact that it was like jobs were so competitive at the time.
Yeah.
Like I'd be on the Max and I'd see a job listing pop up on Craigslist and it'd be in the direction I was going for like $9 an hour to cook. And I would show up 15 minutes after it got posted and there'd already be like 20 people in line. And it was the same thing where like you're cooking on the line, like at Widmer, they had a waste sheet. So if I overcooked a burger or something, I had to like write on the waste sheet that I messed up this burger. Like I could try and not to, but the very next day a kitchen manager would come around and be like, "Hey, you were missing a burger from last night's count. How do you know one thing?" So if you like messed up more than 3 things in a month, they'd like cut one of your shifts. It was just so
Wow.
cut and crazy at the time for $9 an hour. It was nuts. I never put 2 and 2 together that it was this financial crisis and that's why there was like a million people trying to apply for one little job. But Portland wasn't exactly a good scene for me. We kind of talked a little bit about that when I was down in LA. Ended
Yeah.
up finding the heroin next to my apartment and things started getting pretty bad. One of my friends from Juneau ended up coming down and he told me he was just coming down to visit and hang out. But like as soon as he got there, he's like, "Okay, you're coming back with me, by the way." It's kind of like this.
It was an intervention. He knew you
Yeah.
needed he knew you needed
He
the help.
knew that I couldn't be there. I'd end up dead or back in jail or something, who knows? So, yeah, he came down, basically told me I had to go. Work was pretty understandable. They probably were excited to get rid of me, honestly. But so I came back up to Juneau, ended up getting a job at this restaurant that was like, it was called Zephyr at the time. Real crazy owner, equally crazy chef, but he was doing pretty cool things for Juneau, which was like for the longest time, people had this saying that it's good for Juneau, which meant to say like it was really mediocre, but for Juneau, it was amazing. And so this was like the first time that there was somebody in Juneau I felt was like really trying and applying himself, not just like reheating Cisco stuff. So it was kind of exciting to work there, but that guy was nuts and the owner was this crazy cokehead. Um, and then those two had a falling out as, you know, two big egos are going to have a falling out. Um, so he left. And then all of a sudden at 23, I found myself a chef of a restaurant. It's like really had no business being one, but here I was. So started
Wow.
running this restaurant called Zephyr. And it was interesting. I mean, my drug and alcohol abuse hadn't really slowed down aside from I just wasn't doing the hard drugs anymore, but was still getting plenty messed up on shift and after and all that kind of stuff. And then the owner's a crazy cokehead, so he doesn't even care. But it was busy. Somehow it ended up taking off. People liked what we were doing, which I think just kind of shows how poor the Juneau dining scene was at the time that like this 23-year-old alcoholic was doing the best food in town. But
What year was this?
that had to have been maybe still '08, '08, '09, because I got sober in 2010 and I was 25. So that must have been like tail end of '08, '09. Yeah, I was kind of just dragging along. I mean, like the business was going well. We were busy all the time, but personally, I was just a total mess. And then ended up having a daughter. And it was kind of one of those things where a couple months before my daughter was born, I realized I could be a drunk or I could be a dad, but I couldn't be both. So I got sober. I had attempted it a couple times before, either through like AA or tried to go to a rehab program. Had to do outpatient rehab, like court ordered outpatient rehab a couple of times. None of that ever worked. But the like a looming prospect of my daughter coming, along with the realization that alcohol and drugs wouldn't make me like a better chef or a better friend or a better any like no, there's no positive aspect to it. You know what I mean? Like if you're one of those people that could have one or two drinks and it helps you socialize, like sure, that's great, but I'm not one of those people. So it was nothing but negative for me. So was finally able to kind of kick that, and my life got infinitely better. I started cooking better. I mean, I kind of went from an alcoholic to a workaholic, like you got to put that energy into
The addiction
something.
process goes to another direction.
Right. And so, that was also my saving grace was I had this creative outlet so that like instead of needing to go drink or anything. I'm like, I'm going to teach myself how to make ice cream or whatever crazy idea I had at the time. The owner, through all of his faults, was still pretty supportive in letting me do things as long as it was like making money for the restaurant.
Yeah.
It would never be like, no, you can't do this. It just, as long as money was still coming in, he didn't care. But also it made for a weird scene when it's like this Mediterranean restaurant, but I'm serving banh mi because I just found out about them and, now I got to make them. Like, kind of made for a weird scene. Yeah, things were kind of going well there, but then the owner's drug problem started to kind of get in the way. He started getting kind of crazy. And then it was like going from cocaine, all of a sudden he was doing meth. We were like having to kick him out of his own restaurant for being all nuts, or like the cops were showing up looking for him and you're like trying to run cover for this guy that's supposed to be your boss. I was
Wow.
forging his signature on checks because he was never around to like write checks to all the people that we owed money to all the time. Just a real bad scene. But yeah, after I'd gotten sober, it was one restaurant and we went from one restaurant to three in the course of a year. And I was
Wow.
running all of them for this guy. So it was like that on top of also having, a newborn kid. I was really running myself ragged. But the owner's kind of drug problem started to creep into the paranoia territory. He started thinking I was like out to get him. If we'd have a slow week at the restaurant, he started accusing me of sabotaging the business.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it got it wasn't
Gnarly.
fun. Yeah. So I started to try and talk to him about buying one of the restaurants from him. I had some money saved up. Through all of his craziness, he was still compensating me very well for running the three restaurants. So I was making good money as someone my age. So I had a chunk of change and I was like, I'll give you a down payment. Plus, he owed me some money that will like wipe that debt clean and I'll take one of these restaurants and we'll call it a clean break. And he strung me along for a little bit. We got lawyers involved. I ended up paying a bunch of money to lawyers to like draft up contracts and all this kind of stuff. And then the day we were supposed to sign for the sale, he said he couldn't do it because he couldn't create his own competition in town. But he thought that I was going to stick around and still run his three restaurants. So I was like, all right, well, like I'm done, dude. Like, here's your keys. We're going to go our separate ways. I put a little thing up about that I was no longer involved in his restaurants, just on the whole social media, like, hey, just
Yeah.
everyone, like, I'm not here anymore. So if you have a bad experience, don't blame me, kind of thing. And it was just kinda like a bell rang off. Like, all of a sudden, I had all the different people in town trying to kinda, like, poach me. But I had this experience building up this guy's, from 1 restaurant to 3, and at the end, I didn't really have anything to show for it. So everyone I was talking to, I was like, "I'm not gonna build up your business. Like, you're gonna give me a piece. I'll buy in, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be just I'm not gonna just be a cook." And a lot of them didn't seem too keen on that. And then a friend of a friend introduced me to this guy, Travis Smith, who was running this little coffee shop. And he was like, Travis wants to meet and talk. So I meet and talk with Travis, and he's running this tiny little coffee shop where he's like FedExing up Stumptown coffee because he's obsessed with quality coffee. So
Wow.
he's like bringing in the good stuff, but they don't have a good food program. And he very much aligns with like, paying the extra money to get the good stuff, delivering a quality product, all this kind of stuff. And also he wanted someone that was going to be a partner. So he would let me buy in. So that was kind of that. I ended up buying into this little coffee shop. At the time, they were doing like $900 a day in sales, just struggling along. And we started doing dinner service out of there, and it just blew up. It went nuts. We were like a 27-seat cafe, and we were pushing like 200 people through in the daytime, and then another 150 at night, just like go, 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 go.
That's crazy numbers.
Insane. From like 7 AM until like 10 o'clock at night. Just
Wow.
huge.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was nothing else in town. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, Juneau at the time was just a lot of places like reheating FSA stuff, frozen halibut, fish and chips. Like, it's kind of the same thing everywhere. And all of a sudden, there was this new place, and it was like, tamarind braised lamb shakes. And also, we were really young and kind of stupid, didn't understand the business enough. So we were doing this noble, like, we're only going to charge what we need to charge, So selling $19 entrees a day. Oh, so dumb. Really dumb. Like, really put us in a hole for a while. Like, starting to wonder, I'm like, why am I only making $8 an hour as owning this restaurant? It's because I'm
You're
fucking
not
running a
charging enough
50%
for your
food bill.
customers.
I'm not charging enough because I'm trying to prove a point or something. It was so dumb. Really, really dumb. But
As a chef, I'm always asked the same question. What's your secret to making a restaurant quality dish at home? It's not just the ingredients, it's how you bring them to life, and it starts with the right tools. Heston's ProBond professional clad cookware collection will give you control, consistency, and confidence. It's cookware that makes you want to cook more. Check it out at hestonculinary.com and use my promo code COOKWITHCHRIS for 10% off your first order.
yeah, it just took off like crazy. And then from there, we kind of built up to all the other things we're doing. So it was a couple years of that. I mean, the first year, it was like we didn't even really have a kitchen. We had there was no hood. There was like a hole in the wall with a box fan.
Yeah,
And then
sounds.
we had like an old pizza oven from like 1960 that I swear was not insulated or had lost its insulating properties. So it'd be like 110 in the kitchen all the time. And then we also had a little 2 burner hot plate, and that was it. So we were also kicking out these crazy numbers with no cooking equipment. It was like we were taking pans from our house. It was a bunch of fridges off Craigslist that we had. We didn't even have third pans. We were using gallon bags. So like stuffing all of your meats in just like gallon bags, like no money. We had no money. And then also doing this dumb shit where we're like, we're not going to charge a bunch of money, but yet had no money. But yeah, eight months until finally the the building inspector came by and was like, "Hey, I need to check out your guys' kitchen because it doesn't align with your menu." And he came up there and saw that like we were operating without a hood and or fire suppression system or any of that kind of stuff. And was basically like, okay, like I'm gonna give you 2 weeks to get a plan in action. All he
Wow.
wanted from us was to like promise that we were gonna install a hood and stop cooking meat. So like no more grease laden vapors, basically. No searing. We could still like
Yeah,
braise
yeah.
stuff in the oven or whatever. You couldn't brown it off. Like he kind of put some rules down, but then so we got a contractor to like agree to install a hood for us, and that kind of got us off our backs. But yeah, it was the first 8 months were nuts. And then we used to do a lot of things like since we only had the 2 burner hot pot, we do like salmon curry because curry's just you can just it's a one pot thing, right? But there's no
Yeah.
hood. So basically, one person would tell everybody else to leave the kitchen and then pull their shirt over their face and then start like caramelizing off the curry paste with no hood, just dying in this kitchen. It was nuts. I can't believe we did what we did. But yeah, we finally got an actual kitchen installed in there after about 8, 9 months. And that just changed kind of everything for us. Like got a lot more streamlined, actually able to like hire staff now that there was like a real line and all this kind of stuff. And then we started
You had
expanding from there.
equipment, pans.
We had equipment, we had pans, we had actual plates. Like, yeah, it was, man, it was kind of nuts. And then also one of those things where it's like me and the other, because like a lot of those cooks that were working with me at the time are still with me. My
That's
CDC at
amazing.
Lupo was there. My baker, who we're opening a new bakery with, was there. The guy that's still running the kitchen there was there at the time. So like they were all there. It's like they've all stuck with me for a long time. And it's almost like sometimes we talk about like you reminisce a little bit, like the good bad old days where it was like
The
it was
good
good
bad old days. I
stuff.
like that.
Yeah, like yeah, it sucked, but also it was fun and like new and exciting. But yeah, after a couple years of that, on it was so busy there that like the bakers baking the pastries in the morning were also competing with us doing prep with this like one oven situation.
Yeah.
So
Space.
yeah, we ended up opening up we got a like a spot up the street and we installed a bakery in there. So they started working out of there. But it was this like retail, it had like a retail street facing side. We were cooking in the back. And then it just like papered up this prime street retail location and just had like storage in it. And finally we were like, why are we, we're using half of this building for this bakery and the other half is just a storage unit that's like a prime retail spot. Let's open up a like delicatessen kind of thing. And so I got a hold of the guy that I went to culinary school and I asked him if I could come back and kind of learn about salumi. And so he was like, if you come back in January, I'll plug you with a family and you can go spend a couple weeks with them, basically learning how to do salumi, like the traditional way. So went back over to Italy and then took part in this like 2-week hog processing where they raise their hogs all year. Then they kill them in
Yep.
January and then it's the whole
Yep.
thing. And that was super fun. It was awesome. The guy there that was teaching me, Gianni, he was like always had a Pall Mall sticking out of his mouth, just like chain smoking the entire time. It was also like it was my first real experience with like, over there, they're all about the quality of the animal. Like
Yeah.
it's got to be raised right. It needs so much, square meters of land to roam on and all this kind of stuff. So it's all about the health of the pig. And then there's also a vet on site when they do a slaughter. So like
Yep.
there's all this attention to the actual health of the pig. So once we got it, it never hit refrigeration. We're like in Calabria and they've got this pig just sitting down on the counter. Like at one point they said it was hot in the kitchen, so just crack the door. That was it. But for a whole week, this pig's just sitting out. Never hit refrigeration once. And I was like, are we gonna get sick? No, just totally
Yeah. And
fine.
then the hot butchery process, right? You're doing hot butchery. You don't fridge it so the fat congeals, so it's easier to break down, separate all the muscles.
It's like body tent. It's yeah.
It's crazy.
Uh-huh. And then it's all loose. Like you could like seam butcher the thing with your hands. It's so weird. But that was a really
That's
cool
amazing,
experience.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
You
just
don't
all of
get
it.
that in the US.
They didn't they didn't use a grinder because they said the grinder smashes the meat. 2 knives like that.
Hand chop.
Yeah. For hours.
Yeah.
Hours. Just hand chopping that with this guy and these 2 ladies that wouldn't talk to me. Just making kilos and kilos of sopressata. And then like, yeah, curing, all the they had some whole muscles going, but also just a ton of sopressata. That's what we were making. And then when they were getting ready, how like you need high humidity in the beginning, right? For when you go to like
Yeah.
hang this stuff. Well, they kept talking about they're like, the storm's gonna come, the storm, the storm. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand this whole storm thing. And then sure enough, like when we went to go hang the sopressata in this little like shed thing they got, one thing, like they cold smoke it with green olive wood. You ever seen that? They'll like
No, I've never seen that. I've seen him smoke, but never with green olive wood. I've seen smoke with
they
olive leaves, but never the wood.
it was like just like, yeah, olive wood that was green, like just ratty sticks and stuff. And they would cold smoke it for like 6 hours and then stop for a while. And then maybe like 6 hours later, they would come back and do it again. They were like, just do it in this little, just applying this kind of like thick, kind of nasty smoke. But yeah, while they were doing that, this storm came in off the like sea and it started raining and being windy. It's like it clicked with me that this was something that they had been doing for thousands of years
Yeah.
and like has never changed, which is one of the things that I really enjoyed about salumi and the whole craft is like, even when you're doing it at your shop and you're following HACCP regulations and stuff, like it's not vastly different from what they were doing a long
No.
time ago. You're throwing meat and salt together and letting it sit for a couple weeks and then hanging it up. That's it. Like you might buy some starter cultures or something, but it's just the same process. It's just really, I really enjoyed it.
It's
Mm.
preservation. It's a natural form of preservation, fermentation preservation, and they figured it out. And people, they've doing it forever, right? It's like from the dawn
Uh,
of time. And to learn that skill is like it's a really powerful feeling to be able to experience that in the place. Did they make sanguinacci when you were there? Were they making the blood sausage with the woman
yep.
keeping the blood
Uh,
from coagulating? Yeah.
oh yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Like it's bleeding
Totally.
the pig out. She keeps stirring it with her hand so the blood doesn't get to coagulate. And
Yeah. In some like gnarly bucket,
yeah,
running the, or like, yeah, just flushing the intestines with a garden hose real quick. And then that's it.
yeah,
And then like,
getting
yeah,
all this. Yeah, it's so gnarly.
uh-huh. That, and then also just the like, man, eating, I don't think we ate a vegetable for like 2 weeks. It
Yeah.
was
Did they
just like,
make you eat the raw pork?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Same thing here.
Yeah. Just eating raw pork sausage. I mean, it's just, I mean, that was the whole thing where I was like, it's a healthy pig. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
do it with like commodity Swift pork, but
No, 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 no.
no, but
Yeah.
over there is just a completely different story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I came back, um, and we opened up our shop. We built a little like curing room in the basement of this building. Juneau is we're in a rainforest. So it just so happened that like it's always like 80% humidity here. Just happened to be
Wow.
perfect. And then it's temperate, so it never really gets hot. And like it gets cold, but we only kind of like cold snaps every now and again. So it was like the perfect conditions for running a curing room down in this basement. So we set up this like whole program. We were the first ones in Alaska to get HACCP certified to like
That's a
cure.
big deal, folks.
It was crazy. It was like talking to the DEC here and explaining what we were trying to do, and then being like, I don't know anything about any of this. So then having to spend a lot of time with the USDA small plant desk, like on the phone with
Yeah.
them, but they don't have anyone up here. So then they're like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we don't come up there. Like, unless you want to pay for the inspector to come up, which like I didn't, it's a lot of money.
It's expensive. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we had Bocolone, right? The USDA meat processing plant. So we had to have
Yeah.
on site. You have to write. So folks, you have to write a HACCP plan for every single product you make. So if he makes every type of salami, every type of whole muscle, whether it's prosciutto, capicola, sopressata, wild fennel salami, a fresh sausage, everything needs a HACCP plan. So if you make 25 products, you have 25 different HACCP plans and they all have to be approved and they all have to be logged and followed. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of work
Well, and it's
and it ain't
also like
cheap.
I got expelled the second week of 10th grade, and my parents were basically like, "School's not for you. You're not going back." That was it for me. And writing a HACCP is like writing a science paper, like college
Oh
level
yeah.
science. You got
Yeah.
to cite sources and all this kind of crazy shit. And like, people that do have HACCPs, a lot of them paid a consultant to write it for them. So they don't want to
Yeah.
share it because they spent a bunch of money. You reach out to some
Yeah.
guy that runs a butcher shop and you're like, "Hey, like, do you mind giving me some pointers here?" And they're like, some closely guarded secret, which is now like anytime any of my friends have started up a salumi program, I will just send them my HACCPs, all of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally, yes. Did it cost you money? Yes. But also you want somebody else to succeed without making somebody else ill. So you want them to have the right tools to succeed properly.
Totally. Like, yeah, like here's
High
this
tides
framework.
raise all ships. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's like, I mean, that's how I feel here in town too. Like anytime a new restaurant opens, and I always hear these people talk about like, "Oh, so and so, are you worried?" And I'm like, it's community, not come. And I feel
Yeah.
that definitely in the chef world, like, you get to a certain level of cooking and the world becomes very small. you know? Hey, I'm friends with Jeremy. You're friends with Jeremy. Like it just it's this very small web of people. And so I very much want to see everyone succeed. And I get excited when there's new things going on and when people want to try stuff out. I mean, if someone reached out and was like, I want to start a salami production facility, I feel like, well, why? What are you doing? But also, if you want my hats out, take it.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, we got
it's a lot.
it's a passion project. I don't know. We never made money on it. It would definitely, especially the first time that we tried to do wholesale. We had like a pizza place that was like, oh, I want a whole bunch of chorizo, and so we got this whole batch of chorizo, and then we gave them a wholesale price, and then we were like, wait, what is the point of this? Like, if I can sell $12 a stick out of the deli case, why am I selling $4 a stick to this
Yeah.
guy? Like, yeah, but yeah. So we had this little shop called Panhandle Provisions that ran for a couple years. It was also funny, is like, so we brought some people up to help us kind of run Panhandle Provisions. There was a kind of like a friend of a friend, and her husband happened to work for Justin Severino at Cure
Yep.
for a
Yep.
while. So he had experience with Cure and Meat, and they wanted to move back to Juneau. And I met them down in Portland and we were talking, and the husband was like, well, what's the scene like there? Cause he was still very much, I think, trying to be involved in the, culinary scene and like,
Yeah.
I think working for Justin, knowing, some of these other people, he kind of wanted to be more well known or whatever. And I told him, I was like, oh, it's not like I'm ever going to win a beard award or anything, but it's still nice to be in Alaska. And then literally like 2 months later, I ended up getting on the long list for being it was back when it was like when you were under 30. I forgot what they were calling
Oh
it.
yeah.
Rising Star or
Best.
Emerging or some kind of thing like that.
I think it's Rising Star or Best New. Best New.
I know they changed it now where it's like for people that have been in the industry less than 5 years. So it's
Yeah,
not
I
just
think it has
young
changed.
people. But before then, it was if you were under 30. So like I got on the list for that. It just was so odd being like right after telling these people that I was never gonna. I mean, I still never won one. Don't think I ever would, but it ended up being on the list. I was like, I never predicted that would ever happen. But yeah, so ran that little deli company for a couple months or a couple years, and then we opened up the Italian restaurant that we have now. There was a hotel that was running a bakery, like a commercial bakery in there, and the
Yep.
owners just didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, they'd gotten kind of older. The husband had a pretty good job as like a lawyer. Like, why would you want to still run a bakery?
It's a
So they
lot.
approached us to basically buy their business. And it was like, I'd always wanted to do this kind of Italian restaurant like I'd learned in Calabria. So we turned that into an Italian restaurant, like wood fired pizza and, handmade pasta, all that kind of stuff. Brought the whole charcuterie salumi program over, had all that going, and, named it in Boca Lupo. And I was trying to basically cook like Calabrese food like I'd learned, and people hated it. They did not like it at all. A lot of like, this isn't Italian food. I don't know what this is. Like they wanted Olive Garden, you know? So it was like the first
That's
year of
crazy.
like, just not people not liking it. Just straight people telling me like, "I've been to Italy and this isn't Italian food." I'm like, "You were on a Viking river cruise. Shut up." Like, I don't wanna hear it. Yeah, just not good. Not a good scene. Things weren't going well. Just, massively in debt, people not liking what I was doing, that kind of a thing. We kinda tried to switch it up the next year and, like, give people what we thought they wanted, like Alfredo and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then, if you're cooking stuff you don't wanna cook, people might not
Why
know
bother?
why they don't like it, but they're gonna pick up on it, right? Like, you don't care.
Yeah.
So, it was like, we were just trying like, throwing shit at the wall, basically. I don't think people were liking that either. And also just, like, the stress was getting to me. 2018, we were skipping paychecks, me and my partner, because we couldn't we might not make payroll, looking like we were gonna go
Wow.
bankrupt. Took out one of those predatory Square loans, try and bridge some
Oof.
things, and then not handling it well personally, just like, yeah, basically being a dickhead because of it. And then it just kind of got so bad that finally I was just like, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want instead of trying to be this other thing, you know, just whatever makes us happy. Um, and also I'd met my partner, Alicia, and it was one of those things where I was like, you know, can't be a crazy person if I want a adult relationship kind of thing. So tried to start not being insane, getting some help there. And so we kind of turned into this like now work what I call an Alaska restaurant with Italian flavored food. So we got an Italian name. There's an Italian aesthetic, but it's very much kind of like the food you had when you came to the dinner with Jeremy.
It was
It's this,
delicious. It was absolutely
yeah.
delicious.
So is it Italian? No, but there's an Italian vibe. And then compound that with there's a huge Filipino population here in Juneau, very large.
Yep.
They came
You were
here
telling
back
us
in the
about
day
that.
to work the canneries, the Alascaros, and then, like the whole family comes over and stuff. So my kids are Filipino. I work with a lot of their family. I consider it my family. Like I'm in the mix with them. So a majority of my staff is Filipino and family, and that kind of started to seep its way into the menu as well. So it's this kind of Alaska restaurant with Italian flavored food that also does Filipino stuff, and sometimes blending it in this kind of weird Alaskan way. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe sometimes, but it's one of those things where it's also like when I describe it to people that don't live here, it doesn't make any sense. But for all the locals, it makes perfect
It makes
sense.
sense.
It's
Yeah.
it's a perfect, this idea of Juneau where it's like it's Alaska with a huge Filipino population, and we're doing Italian-esque food. 5,000 miles
Well,
away from Italy, I'm never going to be an Italian restaurant, right? Like
you're in a region of Italy called Juneau, Alaska.
exactly. There we go. you know, it's
There you go.
just
That's what I used to
it.
say about Encanto. We're in a region of Italy known as San Francisco. That I think makes a huge difference. You've found your voice, what makes your guests happy, right? What makes your
Yeah,
staff happy and excited to cook. And it comes through. I mean, our meal was delicious. And it's like, that's cool because I don't think a lot of people ever find their voice or find what makes not only themselves personally happy, but their guests happy. And they
yeah.
go through the motions. And I think that says a lot.
That was, that for it to click. I mean, that's the biggest thing was that one, the locals were into it, right? So
Yeah.
it's a tourist town, and you can do this thing where you can cater to the tourists, but they're only here part of the year. We always wanted to cater to the locals. And once we kind of changed up what we were doing and did this, we're just going to do what we want to do kind of thing. Went like 2018, we were almost bankrupt. 2019, we were debt free and making money. No partner, like it's just me and my partner, no outside investors, no silent partners, no bank loans, no nothing, debt free and making money because we just kind of started doing what we wanted to do and it was resonating with people. Like all of a sudden we were busy. So 2019 was a great year. Then COVID,
Yeah.
that wasn't great.
And you made it though. Of course, it wasn't
We
great
made
for
it.
anybody, but you made it. You made it.
We were, I
That's
was, uh,
huge.
I was selling ice cream and frozen pizzas at like a distillery down the street. They had like a little freezer and I would just go stock it with stuff. It'd be like a few $100s every day, which was something, right? But
Yeah.
also like, you can't ice cream's another one of those things where if you can do direct to consumer, like sell it at your shop, but if it's somebody else selling it, you're dealing with the USDA and HACCP and all that kind of stuff again.
Yeah.
And also I was vac packing the frozen pizzas. So reduced oxygen packaging, dairy products, you know,
Yeah.
I was doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. And as soon as the COVID restrictions lifted, the health department sent me an email and they were like, "Hey, we need to talk about the paperwork for what you're doing over there." And I was like, "I'm not doing that anymore." That was the end of that.
There you go.
But I was like, it made me realize they knew what I was doing the entire time and were
But they
letting me get
wanted
it.
you to survive. They
That was
wanted you to
it.
survive. Nobody, yeah. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, you were following protocols, proper protocols, because you'd learned
Yeah.
them from your HACCP program. You knew
Yeah.
what you were doing. Nobody wants to see anybody go out of business. It's just an awful
No.
thing. And you were
No.
providing a service to the community and they knew it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they didn't do what I'm glad they did what they
Yeah.
did and let you be
Me
you.
too. Because otherwise
Right?
I didn't know what I was gonna do after that. That was the last resort. I was just frozen pizzas and ice cream. But yeah, then we got out of COVID and man, I mean, That was also 2019, ended up back on the beard long list. So I was on it twice when I was down at the Rookery for being under 30, and then I wasn't on it for a little bit, while we were, like, expanding and opening all those other things, and also just while I was being a crazy dickhead. I think it's kinda interesting watching this, like, things weren't going well and wasn't getting the kind of media attention or anything, and then once we kinda settled into this, like, let's just lay back and do what
Happy
we want
groove.
kinda happy groove, like, everything kinda took back off, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that kinda makes sense. It all goes hand in hand, huh?" But, yeah, things started going well, back on the beard list, got through COVID, and then, I think it was 22, 23. We ended up on, New York Times, their 50 favorite restaurants in the country or something like that. I forget what
It's great.
the thing was called. Yeah, really unexpected. We were like, "Oh, that's up here? That's crazy." And that just, like, blew us up. It was kinda crazy. Like, we were already doing okay, but once that happened, like, I don't know what it was, but it was like then it made the people that weren't already our regulars, like, that told them we were a good restaurant, so they started coming. I've never quite figured it
Yeah.
out. Like, by that point, we had been there 6 years, and also these people were like, "I've never been here before." I'm like, "This town's only, like, 30 miles of road. How have you never been here?" Like, I don't.
Yeah, sometimes people just make that decision and, they go to their systematic, consistent things over and over again because they feel comfortable. So, I mean, it opened the door. It brought more people in.
It big time. Our sales went up 40%.
That's
Just
huge.
huge, huge. And then the next year, New York Times listed us again, but this time for our pizza. It was like the 22 best pizza places in the country. So it was
Wow.
like again, and it just kind of like doubled down. All of a sudden, like it exploded again. Or all of a sudden, just even more. So then it was just like year after year of just us kind of things going super well. And then progressing on the
Being
beard list, like
yourself.
being our, yeah, just being us. And then in 23, made it on the short list for the Beard Award, which, like, never really saw that coming because, there's no like, you can't drive to us. You gotta take a plane or a boat, and it's not
Yeah.
cheap. And those judges, like, they're not getting some crazy stipend. I've heard it's like 900 bucks
No,
or something that they're supposed to use to go
I
to
don't know.
all these places, you know? So, like, that's most of that's just gonna be a plane ticket. If they gotta get a plane ticket and a
Yeah.
hotel, like, the fact they were still coming and trying our food all the way up there blew my mind. But yeah, ended up on the short list. And then things have just been going since then. Ended up on the short list again in 25, and we also got to cook at it, which was super fun. So since we got to cook
Cool.
at it, they gave us a bunch of money. And then because we're promoting Alaska seafood, a bunch of people gave us seafood to bring down. So like they gave us a bunch of
Of
scallops
course.
to,
Yeah.
right. Um, we made that like that scallop dish that I had at Jeremy's, the
Which was
squidding.
epic. That scallop dish with the squid ink agrodolce was fucking incredible.
That is like, so that dish we've been doing for probably 10 or 12 years. And we were doing
So good.
it's evolved in a sense, but in its infancy, Ruth Rachel, but I don't know how you pronounce her name.
Yeah,
The
you said it
famous,
right. That's her name.
yeah. So
Yeah.
she just happened to be in Juneau, like on a cruise or something. It wasn't a work thing, but she came into the restaurant and got that, and then later wrote this like blog post or something about how the best scallops she's ever had in her life were in Juneau, Alaska, at this coffee shop, basically. And
That's
that
awesome.
really kind of springboarded a lot of things for us. Like that started to get us a lot of attention from the industry, not so much from customers, but
Yeah.
just industry wise. Then it was like, other chefs were kind of reaching out. I started meeting people, started meeting like, Richie, Ryan, that
Yep.
whole gang of guys. But yeah, that dish has been this like mainstay forever for us. So we got to cook that at the Beard Awards. But since someone donated a bunch of scallops for us, we had a bunch of extra money. So I got to bring my whole crew. So like my whole management team came, CDC came, my front of house manager and like the assistant manager, they all got to come and like kind of celebrate with me. So it was super fun.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And here you are now.
And here I am now, plodding along. trying to get the bakery open.
Thanks for listening to How the Sausage is Made. If you've liked what you've heard today, please make sure to like and subscribe. And don't be afraid to tell your friends about it.